live right here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We're Alabama's rival site, so we care and pay close attention to everything Alabama, including recruiting. We got football, we got basketball now that things are going on there, including this Bama SEC and SEC tournament championship team. We're going to cover spring football practice like no one else, and it is great to have you guys here hanging out on this Monday night. So much to talk about. And as you watch, hey, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, be part of this. It's growing 50,000 plus now. We're looking to get to 100,000. And when you guys show up and hang out with us, we're more inspired to do content like this. He's Tony Tsoukalas. He covers Alabama on a daily basis. He's the Bama Insider Alabama Rivals beat writer. I'm Mick Gillespie. And again, a pleasure to have you guys with us tonight. Tony, we got together last night for the bracket reveal, our watch party. You've had a little bit of time now to let everything sink in. Alabama, Iona, 2 versus 15. We're going to talk a lot about that, but just your thoughts on how everything transpired, the seeding that Alabama has in this matchup.
Alabama didn't get the number 1 seed that I think some people were kind of holding out hope for, but I think they got a really good pairing in the bracket. I think I like where they are. I think it's a very manageable run. Look, Jay Billis projected Alabama to get to the Final Four and win their side of the bracket and, their section of the bracket. And I think it's certainly doable. I mean, they got the number 4 overall seed in Michigan that they'll have to get past. But I think it's a manageable run. I think the Sweet 16 game between Texas and Alabama, like if that happens the way the bracket says it should, then that could be a really interesting game. But I think Alabama can get past Texas, and then depending on how healthy Michigan is and where they're at, they could make a run at the Final Four.
Well, Alabama has made it to the Elite Eight once, so they don't have a very rich success history in college basketball. This is one of the best teams that they've ever had. It's one of the rare occasions where they've swept all the championships in the conference. Alabama, though, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but they haven't really been tested as far as top 25 teams. And their first opponent, Iona, hasn't played any top 25 teams, but Bama is 1-3 against the top 25. Although I felt like the games that they played in the tournament where Tennessee and LSU are concerned felt like tournament games. Those are good teams, whether they're ranked or not. But do you think that's still going to affect Alabama, that they haven't played and beaten the top in the country?
I don't know what you're talking about. Alabama's had a pretty hard schedule throughout. I mean, they played in a major tournament in the preseason. They played in an SEC team that an SEC schedule that had some quality teams. So I think Alabama's pretty battle tested, especially when you look at some of these teams that haven't had full schedules, or Alabama's had a full schedule. They've faced a pretty tough out of conference schedule, and then the SEC is I think you'd say it's down, but it's not. It's still a decent Power 5 conference, and so for them to do that, and like you said, go into the SEC tournament and do as well as they did there, I think they're pretty battle tested. They've been through some close games. They kind of know how they're going to respond to certain situations. So nothing to worry about in that perspective of it.
Well, here's a side-by-side comparison. Rick Pitino's Iona team against Alabama, led by Nate Oats. It almost feels like the old gunslinger against the young up-and-comer.
Yeah, it's definitely, the passing of the torches between maybe it's between two really great historical coaches. We'll have to see if Nate Oats goes on to become a Hall of Famer, but it's definitely a unique matchup of head coaches to see in the first round between a number 2 seed and number 15 seed. Rick Pitino, you don't usually get that level of coach on a 15 seed, or if you do, the roles are reversed. In normal circumstances, I think you'd see a guy up and coming guy like Nate Oats coach the 15 seed, kind of almost like what he did with Buffalo. So it's kind of unique for Alabama to be facing a coach as good as Rick Pitino and playing a 15 seed.
Well, you can look at it right there. people, as they're filling out their brackets, you and I are about to do that here in a second. We're going to fill out a bracket together, at least the Alabama side of things. But, 95% of the people that are filling out brackets right now think that Alabama is going to beat Iona. It's not unheard of, though, for a 2 to get upset by a 15.
Sure, it's not. You just gotta, with the way Alabama's been playing, and it seems like they're healthy now. Look, you got guys like Herb Jones. I mean, he looks a lot healthier. There was a stretch during the season where you looked at Herb Jones and you're like, man, this guy's playing at 70%. And I think that some of the fans even got a little frustrated at him because there's some things he couldn't do. But back-to-back double doubles for him. In the tournament, he looked great. Obviously, he stepped up on defense, especially against Trendon Watford in the last second to help clinch the title game for Alabama in the SEC tournament. So he's healthy. I'm not sure where Josh Primo is going to be for this matchup, but I don't necessarily think Alabama's going to need him. I just think overall Alabama's not only healthy but playing really well. You get guys like Javon Quinterly's been on an absolute roll. So things are clicking for Alabama at the right time, and I like where they're at heading into the tournament.
All right, well, before we get into picks, you and I were kind of chatting before we went on the air, and we were trying to figure out what Nate Oats said. I mean, part of the story now has become Nate Oats yelled something, seemed like right after the final shot didn't go in, and might have been directed towards LSU. I said I wasn't sure who he was yelling that at. Get out of here, something to that effect.
Please exit the court, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something to that capacity. It was an intense game. Emotions were high. I think LSU came into that game with a chip on their shoulder because, look, they'd been destroyed by Alabama in the prior 2 meetings, and they're a good team. They just ran into an Alabama club that was ready for them. And, I mean, just had a great game plan. They made some adjustments. And they played a heck of a ball game. I mean, they were a tip-in away from winning. But at the same time, you likened it to Ed Orgeron. And I said, well, I got to bring this up. You kind of felt like it was – and since you said that, I'm just going to go ahead and play it one time for everybody that's watching right now, just so that they remember. This is Ed after LSU beat Alabama in football, which is something that rarely happens, by the way. I want to say like 1 out of the last 10, right? But Ed was, at center field at Bryant Denny Stadium, and then this is what happened.
Right in the middle of the field. Everybody. Hey, we've been waiting for this moment, man. Let's go. Right here in the middle of the damn field. Let's bring it down. Tigers on 3.
Hell yeah.
Because this is our house from now on.
Yes, sir.
Tigers on 3. 1, 2, 3. Tigers!
All right, I'm going to let you explain now. Tell them what you told me.
I'm just saying that him getting excited and Oats getting excited are the same thing. You can't get mad at Oats or you can't get mad at O and then totally, abstain, Oats. Like both coaches are allowed to get emotional after huge wins for their program. That's the only point I'm making is don't have this double standard here, call it for what it is. They both got excited and they both rightfully got excited. I think Nate Oats is probably going to be able to back it up a little bit more than Ed Orgeron is. And so he's going to have to pay for it less. But I'm sure what Nate Oats did and said to LSU is going to stick around for next year. And I'm sure they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. Whether they can do anything about it, we'll have to see. But they're similar incidents at least.
Okay. All right. Well, let's pick some games. I'm not even going to touch that. I'll leave it right there. I already went ahead and picked Alabama over Iona. Look, I get it. Rick Pitino is the coach of this team. Iona really hasn't played that much of a schedule this year. They've played the least amount of games of any of the teams that are in, according to the count that I did. And then on top of that, they're going to play an Alabama team that plays fast. That's the best defensive team in the country. Iona was a long shot in their tournament, but they found a way to win. And so, what is it? The biggest spread in the entire field right now? I saw it at like 16.5. So I'm going to go ahead and put Alabama ahead to the second round. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much a given. I mean, I know that 15s can beat 2s, but I just don't see with the way Alabama's playing right now, they don't look like a number 2 that's going to lose.
All right, Maryland versus Connecticut. Now, I'm from Maryland. I transferred from Maryland to Alabama. I do love the Terps. I grew up watching Maryland basketball. I got to be full disclosure there. I mean, I was at the national championship game when they beat Indiana in Atlanta. The only time Maryland's ever been number 1, by the way. So I love Maryland, but Connecticut, normally on a normal season, they're a really good team. I'm not picking Connecticut. I just wanted to throw up the comparisons here. And Maryland's played in a really tough conference this year. They won the Big Ten last year and we're going into the NCAA with a lot of momentum. Obviously, we didn't have a basketball tournament. But look at all these right there. Look at all of these top 25 games that they've played. They're 4-7 against top 25 teams. They've had to play the likes of Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State. Those are really good teams. Ohio State. I feel like Maryland is tested. And when I look at Connecticut, no games against the top 25. And it's hard to really gauge what they're going to look like when they really haven't played that level of competition yet. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually going with Maryland on this one as well. It's always the 10-7 game is one of those. It's almost even, because it doesn't look as even, but I mean, it's not that much different than the 9-8 game. So these are two pretty evenly matched teams. And like you said, I think Maryland's a little bit more battle tested. And look, it could, if Maryland wins, it'd be a reunion between Galen Smith and Alabama. Galen Smith was a member of the big recruiting class at Alabama. And, it'd be kind of nice if they were able to kind of come back and kind of meet in the NCAA tournament, because he was part of that, that 2016 class.
All right, Abilene Christian against Texas. Texas won the Big 12 tournament. Shaka Smart, who led VCU deep into the tournament, taking on a team in Abilene Christian that is going to be well over, probably athletically speaking, going to be kind of overwhelmed. But I'll tell you what, these are the type of games when you're Abilene Christian where you get an opportunity to beat the team that probably is where a lot of these guys wanted to go to school. Sure.
I mean, and look, the in-state factor kind of maybe they know each other, but I think, you look at it, Abilene Christian, they're going to be playing with nothing to lose. When you look at games like this, you can never count out those teams that just, they're here, they're going to make the most of it. There's no pressure. I think there's a lot more pressure on Texas heading into this game than there is on Abilene Christian. And in these high intensity situations, I think a lot of times that can weigh heavily on the higher seeded or the better seeded team. The one thing I will bring up though, in terms of upsets this year, it's obviously going to be a limited capacity crowd. Actually, yeah. So no crowd. So because of that, a lot of times the crowd will pull for the underdog. In this case, that's really not going to be as much of a factor. So I think, if it does get close, Abilene Christian won't have really that advantage.
I like the fact that Abilene Christian played in the tournament a year ago. They destroyed Nichols in the championship game. They absolutely ran him off the floor. I think this is the year where you're going to see some upsets. I'm going to go ahead and pick them. What do you think?
You're picking Abilene Christian?
I think I feel like this could be one.
I'm going with Texas. I'm definitely going with Texas on this one.
So you definitely think that Texas. Yeah. How sure are you?
How confident? I'm pretty confident that Texas is going to win this one. Yeah,
95% of people agree with you. Spread's 8.5. And the Shaka's got these boys playing. I still think that this is going to be an upset. So I'm going to go the other way on this one. All right, here, let's take a look at this. BYU versus a play-in game, right? To talk about I don't know anything about UCLA. Is that, I know this is a dumb question, is that Michigan State or Mississippi State?
No, it's Michigan State, yeah.
So it's Michigan State. So Michigan State did not get into the tournament. They're coming from that very highly tested Big Ten. I think I saw BYU play against Gonzaga. They held their own. I still think the power conference is going to get them in this game.
I think Michigan State's going to beat UCLA, who's lost, I think, like 4 or 5 in a row. And then I think Michigan State's actually going to end up beating BYU as well. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we agree on that one.
That creates a big Cinderella matchup right there. Yeah, I think I see what you're doing. You're stacking it up for an easy run for Alabama, huh? I think that Abilene Christian pick, which is kind of crazy. You're setting it up so Alabama's had everybody on their side of the bracket. All the favorites are gone. I see some little home cooking here, Mick.
I don't know about that. All right, so who's going to win between Michigan State and Abilene Christian, or UCLA, whichever one? We both agree it's going to be Michigan State.
Well, yeah, I mean, Texas is going to win, but yes, in this case, it would be Michigan State.
All right, Michigan State, Alabama, in a buzzer beater gets by Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
So look at that, Michigan State versus Alabama. That would be a Nick Saban Bowl type game. All right, let's leave that one there. Let's go up here. I don't think we really need to look at this. Michigan's going to roll over whoever they play. St. Bonaventure against LSU. I bet St. Bonaventure yesterday at the Pearl River Resort Timeout Sports Lounge, $5 big, and I won $9.75 back. So I feel good about what St. Bonnie is able to do. We've seen LSU now 3 times this year. This is one of those games, the 8-9, normally one of the best games in the tournament, at least seeding wise. Who do you got?
I got LSU. I don't love their depth, but they've got a bunch of playmakers, and they played Alabama really tough, and they seem to be also catching their stride heading, in the SEC tournament. So a lot of talent on that team. I pick LSU.
You know who the guy that ran Madison Square Garden is, right? Back in the day.
There, yeah. I'm not sure if everyone at Madison Square Garden knows who he is, but yes.
A big fella, and the paint, kind of reminds me of the guy that's patrolling the paint for Illinois right now. But he's leading Georgetown against Colorado. Honestly, I don't know much about Colorado, but I know a lot about Patrick Ewing. I love the fact that he's coaching college basketball. I remember him as a Knick. He was a great player, always an awesome guy. Is Georgetown back? I mean, they won their tournament, but you look at their conference record, 7-9. Colorado, 14-6 in the conference. They've both played some top 25 competition. The Hoyas have won 3 and lost 4. Colorado's 3-4, so they've got a winning record against the best. They got upset in the tournament, the Pac-12 tournament, by Oregon State. So maybe they're going to be really hungry. They still got into the tourney. Your feeling on McKinley Wright and Colorado versus the Hoyas?
Man, I want to pick Georgetown here, but I'm going to resist that urge and pick Colorado. I just think Colorado's going to win this. But I'd be tempted to pick Georgetown here.
All right, I gave you that one. Because I took the Abilene Christian. All right, how about North Carolina, Greensboro against Florida State? Florida State, I like the Seminoles. I really do. I feel like they're constantly giving people fits, right? Mm-hmm. Take a look at their record, and like UNC Greensboro, neither of these teams played any top 25 competition, which really is crazy when you think about the Seminoles playing in the ACC, but that gives you an idea of how down that conference was this year. The Seminoles, obviously one of the best teams coming out of the ACC. Don't know a lot about UNC Greensboro, but it's the 4th time that they've been in the tournament. And Wes Miller, it's the 2nd time that he's taken them to the tourney. Look, to me, I'm as blind as a bat trying to figure out what's going to happen in this game. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Florida State. I think I don't have a great feel on UNC Greensboro either, and Florida State's kind of proven commodity, so I'm picking them.
So this is how you do the brackets. All right, Michigan, LSU.
I'm going Michigan, but I think that LSU is going to give up a decent game. I think when it comes down to it, like I said with LSU, the depth isn't there, and I think Michigan's a proven team that can expose that. Also, LSU doesn't always play defense. They did a little bit better job against Alabama, but they're a team that doesn't play defense. I think it's going to cost them in the tournament.
All right, now this will be our last game to pick. Colorado, Florida State.
Florida State, yeah, because I was almost going to pick Georgetown, so I'm not going to go to get on a roll with Colorado here, so I'll pick Florida State. Yeah.
All right, well, let's just leave it right here and kind of see how we do next week because, look, we might have to shuffle this entire bracket. But, look, it's exciting to see Alabama in this role where they're a favorite. We know that Primo's off the crutches now, so that's good news for Alabama. That he's going to be back on his feet. Anything else that sticks out as far as this Crimson Tide team getting ready to go to Indianapolis and start this tournament?
Oh, just like I said, I think it seems like they're clicking right now, and that's important. They're playing their best basketball. Like I said, they look healthier other than Primo. And even the guy, you look at Keon Ellis, he stepped up in that final game. He's a guy that's replacing Primo. Javon Quinterly off the bench has been crazy. I think he is almost snubbed. Note for Arizona was also a great choice for sixth man of the year, but I think it's hard not to give it to Javon Quinterly, and I'm glad he won the tournament MVP because that was well deserved. He really kind of put Alabama on his back at times. So having him being able to step up off the bench is also huge.
I felt like that the fact that Alabama had those two games against Tennessee and LSU where they were in a dogfight back and forth, seeing Quinterly, Shackelford, Jones making those big shots in the clutch. Didn't get a lot of help from Petty, but that's okay. Like, I feel like we just wanted to know what would happen when they get into those type of games. And we know,
definitely. And they play a ton of close games, and they do well in close games. That's another thing when you're looking at Alabama. They play well in close games. They play well if you when they're from behind, where a lot of teams kind of crumble. Alabama never does that. So that's a huge feather in Nate Oates' cap, is that he's been able to kind of instill this confidence in his team where they don't where they handle pressure situations pretty well. I think earlier, in past shows, we've talked about, who's going to get the ball, in a clutch situation for Alabama. I'm telling you right now, if it's a clutch situation, I'm putting the ball in Javon Quinterly's hands. I'm not sure if he takes the final shot, but I'm drawing up a play where he has the ball in the closing seconds and letting him do what he wants to with it. If that's a dish out pass to an open guy, so be it. But I have full confidence in him.
Yep, well said, and I couldn't agree more. Anything you're working on that we should check out at BamaInsider.com?
Yeah, just switching gears. I mean, obviously we're going to have the basketball coverage, but switching gears to football, we're doing our spring previews where we're kind of looking at the spring storylines is what we're calling it, and we're kind of taking each position group and looking at the key storylines and the key players in those groups, and it's been a fun series so far. I think tomorrow we're going to defensive line. I think that's what we're on. So, definitely check that out. And if you haven't seen the offensive side that we've already put out this week and a little bit last week, definitely make sure to check that out as well.
And that happens Friday. Alabama back on the gridiron to start spring practice this year. The 8A game is going to be on April 17th. Lot to be decided on the offensive side of the football. And look, they're going to be tested by the time the season starts because they're going to have to go up against the most talented defense in the SEC on paper this year anyway, with all those guys that are coming back. Thanks, Tony.
Oh, definitely.
That's Tony Tsoukalos. He's our beat writer for Bama Insider. Now we're going to switch gears and talk football, and we're going to bring Kyle Henderson on. There he is. What's up, dude? Let's talk a little football. But before we do, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel. This is Bama Insider and BamaInsider.com hanging out with you here on our YouTube channel every Monday night. Monday Night Quarterback. We talk a lot of different sports. And Kyle, you're paying close attention to what's going on with football. But before we get there, you got to give me your thoughts on this basketball team and how your bracket looks. I saw it earlier. You got Alabama winning the national championship.
Yeah, I'll try to find. Let me try to find my bracket real quick. Let me see if I can go. I was, you had me on to talk.
I know football. That was a curveball, but come on.
Look, all right. You guys want to see my bracket? Fine. And you guys can also join the bracket. I put the link in our community tab right here on YouTube. So here's my bracket at a glance. Can everybody see it? You can make it larger.
It looks good. Yeah.
Okay. So here's my bracket. We'll kind of just zoom into the regions. Look, I follow about college basketball as much as everybody else. I'm mostly focused on the Alabama Crimson Tide basketball team. Obviously, I do, a ton of football stuff as well. But looking at the bracket at the glance, I think this matchup right here between Missouri and Oklahoma is very intriguing. Probably one of the most intriguing matchups, in my opinion, in round one. You got an 8 versus 9. So I had to check kind of this tab right here and look at it. And I see that Oklahoma is, 62% pick over Missouri. I think that's pretty interesting because what do these two teams have in common? They both beat Alabama, right? So, that's why that kind of stood out to me. And I think that could be an interesting matchup right here for Gonzaga, to be honest, that 1 versus 8, because I'm telling you, this Oklahoma team, they're good. They're very, very talented. And I kind of, I don't want to spend too much time on that side, but that's something that definitely caught my eye. As you can see, I have Alabama winning. I took them over Illinois in a shootout, 97-93. As you can see, the Illini scoring a ton of points as well. Points per game, 81.4, Alabama 79.6. Looking at Alabama's region, I know you guys just did that. I had a hard time picking Colorado.
Upsets on here, Kyle. I mean, come on.
You know what? I'm going for points. I'm going for style points. I'm trying to win this tournament that we have on the bracket challenge. But as you look, I was, look, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Colorado Buffs, to be honest. So I also, own the Colorado website. So always interested in what the Buffs do as well. It's always great when Colorado football is back, in my opinion. They have some history there. And then on the basketball side, them being matched up with Georgetown, as you said, Patrick Ewing, the big man down in the paint leading them. So I think the money line probably going more towards Georgia, but that's another interesting matchup. You got Florida State, who could be a very dangerous team in this quadrant as well. Them versus Michigan, I think that could be a great Sweet 16 matchup. And then I have down at the bottom tier, I think BYU will be able to get past Michigan State or UCLA. Texas will be tough. Maryland and Connecticut will be, kind of one of those 10 versus 7 matchups that we always see. And then Alabama and Texas, I think, could be a really, really good one. So that's kind of just the general layout. But if you want to join our bracket challenge, go ahead. Link in the description box. I'll put it in there. And, definitely join. It's for free. It's for fun. And I'll probably hand out surprises if I'm not winning.
All right. Yeah. Well, look, your bracket looks like the kind of bracket that there's no upsets. And I feel like this year is going to be a lot of upsets, but we'll find out. And it's going to be a lot of fun when Friday starts, really Thursday, because they're doing the playing games on Thursday, which is pretty cool. So it's going to be a lot of basketball. And after not having a tournament last year, I feel like I'm as excited, doubly as excited, because I got to make up for last year and the fact that we didn't get to have one. So, all right, Kyle, let's switch gears now. And I would love that to happen, by the way. I can't imagine what Tuscaloosa would be like if they won the basketball national championship on top of football. I think they would start construction on a new basketball arena like the next day,
Yeah, possibly so. I think that, when I first moved here to Tuscaloosa, I know we're going to talk football. They start practice here on Friday. Sorry. When I first moved here, and it was the first time going into Coleman Coliseum, I was like, whoa, this place is big. And it tells me that the expectations are there. Like everybody that I've met, and I have some good friends now that are from Tuscaloosa, they all follow the basketball team. They've all followed the basketball team. And I know, it's been a long and bumpy road, but, the excitement's back. And I always kind of revert to the fact that it's somewhat ironic being that Alabama's having this magical basketball season and the fact that the fans can't attend these games. Because you can't imagine Coleman would be packed to the gills, and that's a large stadium or arena, whatever you want to call it. So, whenever we get back on track to some sort of normalcy, I can't wait to see kind of the fan response because, everybody's always wanted these games at Coleman to be sold out. I've been there and it's been less than full. But I think now it would be pretty incredible to see kind of just that energy and experience, being that Alabama is simply rolling on the hardwood as well.
Yeah, it's funny. We have this huge rivalry with Auburn, not just that they're in the SEC, but they're in the same state. A lot of the football games and really all sports with those guys always seem to be really heated. And in my lifetime, and since I went to Alabama and been covering the team, Auburn's the biggest motivator for Alabama to get better at a certain sport, And I'm looking at Nick Saban as I say that, because had Auburn not beaten Alabama, 4 or 5 times in a row and done the whole thing, here's the thumb, all that stuff, I don't know that Mal Moore would have went out and gotten Nick Saban, right? And I feel like the same thing. I heard Bruce Pearl doing an interview today, Auburn's basketball coach, on a show this morning, and I thought he seemed like a really good guy, and he was talking about Alabama and glowing about the SEC, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if Auburn doesn't go get Bruce Pearl and they're not in the Final Four and they're not building a new arena, I don't know that Alabama makes the move to get rid of Avery Johnson and go out and get Nate Oates. But that has turned out to be foresight like you just really can't believe, because this guy's like the hottest coach right now in college basketball. And he led Alabama to a regular season and an SEC championship season, which is amazing. And so it's going to be exciting to see what happens in the tournament. But it's weird how, as we transition into football, how Auburn kind of drives Alabama and vice versa. It seems like Alabama, when they get successful, Auburn fires a lot of coaches to try to catch up with Alabama. It doesn't always work out in their favor. And it feels like with Alabama, like Auburn starts beating them. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you know what? We got to do something about this. And luckily for Alabama, they've been able to, not only get Nate Oates, but this guy right here, Nick Saban. So football practice starts on Friday. The defending national champions. If you said that to Nick Saban, Kyle, he'd say, these guys aren't defending anything. They're an entirely different team.
Yeah, I mean, it is a new team, and there's a lot of storylines. And just like Tony said before he exited, we're right now having a series of daily videos and daily articles that go out kind of talking about the key storylines at each position. A couple weeks before that, we talked about all the position previews, listened out all the players, who's returning, who's leaving. So we just dropped a video, I believe an hour ago, talking about the defensive line and kind of some storylines going into that. And I think mostly the storylines are on the offensive side of the ball, because I think when you look to Alabama's defense, there's so much returning talent. It's really incredible to see just kind of the depth that is returning on the defensive side of the ball, from the secondary, inside linebackers, defensive line. The front seven looks ferocious. So not as many storylines as the offensive side of the ball. And of course, the biggest storyline, I think, overall with this entire team is the fact that Alabama's going to have a new quarterback. And look, the quarterback is a driving force of every single team. Yes, it's much more than a quarterback team, but I think when you have a quarterback taking over like Bryce Young specifically, and then you have Paul Tyson in the background, you also have Jalen Milroe. Look, none of those guys have quality experience. Those guys didn't get on the field even an ample size last year. I mean, Bryce Young threw the football only 22 times, right? So I think that's the major storyline going in this season is how is the new quarterback going to lead this group into this season? And can that quarterback develop the cohesiveness that it's going to take this offense to, where they're currently at? I mean, Steve Sarkisian did a great job. Mac Jones did a great job. Year before that, Tua did a great job. And then with Sarkisian again, this Alabama offense is really at the pinnacle of college football. Can they continue? Probably so. But there's some storylines and there's some players that, really have to showcase their abilities. Wide receiver position, specifically, offensive line, the right tackle specifically, and running back, of course. So a lot of moving parts with this new team. But as you know, Alabama doesn't rebuild. They just reload.
Yeah, I love Evan Neal anchoring the offensive line. I think that gives Alabama a lot of a foundation to build on, a lot of confidence. You go in one area, you put a guy like him in that spot, which is a tough spot to fill. And, that he may have been the most talented offensive lineman on the team last year. And that's just, what I've been told by people that played offensive line in the NFL, that watch it every day, that know it, like unlike I do. So for him to be kind of the anchor of this offensive line, I feel like it really sets Alabama up, rebuilding the most key spot that I feel like you have to be successful.
Yeah, I think you're right. So for those of you that don't know Evan Neal, I'm sure a large majority of everyone who's watching this does, but he's going to be a junior now. He's 6'7", 360 pounds, and he wears it very well. Very athletic, natural knee bender. He'll be moved to left tackle. That's where you want your best tackle on the field, replacing Alex Leatherwood. This will be Evan Neal's third year at Alabama. He started as a freshman, came in from the IMG Academy, and started actually at guard for Alabama during his freshman season, had over 600 snaps. Last year, had over 700 snaps at the right tackle position. So he has a ton of experience. And as you mentioned, him being the anchor of that the offensive line is very, very important because, you lose Alex Leatherwood, you lose Landon Dickerson, you lose you lose Landon Dickerson, Deontay Brown, and Alex Leatherwood, right? So three big parts of the offensive line. But with Evan Neal returning, I think that's really going to catapult this offense. You also have Chris Owens, who I've talked about. He's returning for his extra senior season, which is pretty interesting to think about. And then other components are, you can't forget about Emil Ekiyor. He had over 800 snaps last year. So those three offensive linemen already have cohesiveness, already played a ton last year. So now you just have to worry about a couple other parts. Who's going to take over at right guard? Who's going to take over at right tackle? We're watching the freshmen who just got here, the early enrollees, Tommy Brockemeyer and J.C. Latham. And then maybe at the right guard position, Tommy Brown. But I think that's still up for debate. So practice will get going on Friday, and we'll have coverage right here at BamaInsider.com to talk about those storylines. But we can debate all day about the offensive side. I mean, there's a lot of storylines going in and so many new coaches taking over as well.
He's Kyle Henderson. I'm Mick Gillespie. Thumbs up as you guys watch. Subscribe to our channel. This is Bama Insider. We're the Alabama Rivals site. And this is Monday Night Quarterback. We do this every Monday at 6 o'clock, and we're talking about Alabama football. The champs will be back out on the field starting Friday, and on April 17th, they'll have their annual spring game at Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll be rocking Tuscaloosa that day as well. So that's dead ahead. I love when you get into spring practice. And, we know where the position battles are going to be. The biggest one's going to be who's the starting quarterback. We talked a lot about the offense. Bryce Young, we figure that he's going to be the guy to beat for that position. Only time will tell. My question, though, Kyle, is leadership. Alabama lost so much of their leadership that they had last year. You're talking about Mac Jones. You're talking about Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, the most liked guy on the football team. You're talking about Dylan Moses on defense. Maybe Patrick Surtain. I don't know. But who's going to take that role right now? I'm guessing off the top of my head, that is why it's great to have Brian Robinson back. You would think that maybe he's going to take that role, but who do you think?
That's a great question. And I think leadership is developed over that fourth quarter program, which they're just about finished up with. And I think it kind of bleeds into the spring season as well. On the defensive side, I think leadership, there's a ton of guys with a ton of talent. I just posted a video talking about the defensive line and all the veterans that return. Fedarian Mathis, he's a redshirt senior. You have LeBrian Ray as well coming back. I'm kind of curious to see if LeBrian Ray really has that season we're all expecting him to have. You have Christian Harris, who's going to be your interior linebacker. He's, started 2 seasons for Alabama. Right here pictured is Josh Jobe. Obviously, you can see that he's been in the weight room. So he's going to be the corner for Alabama. And really, Alabama's marquee corner after losing Patrick Surtain. And I think in the back end of the secondary, you have Jordan Battle, Daniel Wright, DeMarco Hellum. So guys with a lot of experience. But I think your leadership question is great. I think on the offensive side of the ball, just because you don't have a true vet at the quarterback position, and I think, the quarterback is a natural leader on the team, but I look to somebody probably like, you said it earlier, Brian Robinson. I think over the time that I've been here, Brian Robinson, he's been quiet. He really hasn't said too much. He's been great during the media interviews, been very professional. But I look to a guy like Chris Owens. He's a senior now at Alabama, coming back for that extra redshirt senior season, and he'll be the center. And as we've seen throughout the course of time, You want that center to be your leadership, your leader, your vocal guy. This guy was vocal last year. He did a lot for Alabama, and if he could come back and he is the center, and we'll have to see because Darian Dalcourt is very good as well. Maybe they'll put Chris Owens somewhere else if Darian Dalcourt beats him out. But Chris Owens, I think, is a guy who comes back with a lot of leadership. Think about the pass centers at Alabama. You had Bradley Bozeman. He was a multi-year starter. Then you had Ross Pierce-Baker. You had Landon Dickerson. All those guys, what do they have in common? They were leaders. And Chris Owens, I think, could be that vet when they need him. Of course, we just talked about Evan Neal. You have Emil Ekiyor. So I think there are leaders on this team. But that's a great question kind of going into springtime, because I think that is when you develop kind of that cohesiveness that you need going into the summertime to keep kind of everybody dialed in, keep everyone on track, and then going into that first game against Miami.
He's Kyle Henderson. I'm Mick Gillespie talking about Alabama with the spring game coming up on April 17th and practice starting on Friday. Friday, you got practice. Saturday, you got Alabama and Iona and the big dance. A lot of Alabama things going on right now to make everyone excited. Women's basketball is going to make the tournament tonight. Baseball and softball are both having top 25 type seasons right now. But just sticking to football and looking at the defensive side of the ball, I was thinking today about that Atlanta matchup to start the season, Alabama against Miami. Miami's going to be as good as they've been in a long time, right? They're going to have a lot of experience back on both sides of the football. Obviously, Alabama and what they've been able to do, it just seems like every single season they reload, which is something that Miami used to say all the time. We don't rebuild, we reload. Alabama's certainly doing the same thing right now. If Alabama wins that football game, my feeling is it's going to be the defense that gets the season started for Alabama. The linebackers are going to be stout. Maybe some questions in the secondary. I feel like the pass rush is going to be good. Is that the way you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have any questions about the defense. I think the defense is going to come out and be a force right away. I think this is going to be one of the better defenses that we've seen over the last couple of years, just because of the veterans and the athleticism that this team has. I talked about this specific storyline in one of my videos today that I posted. The interior pass rush, I think, is going to have to come from Tim Smith, who's now a second-year player at Alabama. Did a fantastic job during his inaugural year in 2020. And I think from the edge, you have William Anderson, number 31 right here pictured. I mean, this guy's already considered one of the most talented pass rushers in college football. And it's kind of crazy because he's only entering year 2. On the opposite side of him, you have Chris Allen, a guy with a lot of experience now, redshirt senior at Alabama. So those guys coming off the edge, I think are really going to get to the quarterback, provide some pressure. And that secondary, if they can find a corner, we've talked about this, several times. I'm not sure who it's going to be. Maybe JaQuincy McKinstry, Kyrie Jackson, Jalen Armour Davis. You have a lot of Marcus Banks. I mean, you have a lot of guys that it can be. But I think the defense is going to be just fine. I think it's going to take the offense a little bit of time to build where they need to go. I think just because of the quarterback, the lack of experience, I think a new running back, new offensive line, new wide receivers, a lot of new starters. I'm not saying that they're going to take a step back by any means. It's just going to take them a little bit of time to get things going. But I think from the defense, I mean, there's not too many storylines, to be honest. It's a bunch of guys who are really established coming after Miami's Derek King. And I'm curious to see that early spread. Is there even an early spread on that game, like an offshore or whatever? I would say, kind of just guesstimating, I think Alabama would probably be favored by maybe 14 and a half.
I don't know. I'm going to try to find it real quick.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, the game's in Miami. I'm sorry, the game's in Atlanta. It's kind of Bryant-Denny East. I mean, we've all seen Alabama go against ACC competition and kind of have their way. I mean, look what they did to poor Florida State. I mean, ever since, remember, that was the first year that I moved here. Alabama and Florida State, they were like 1 versus 3 or something like that. And now Florida State just got, I mean, talk about just falling off the tracks. I mean, I know they're expecting to have a kind of a bounce back year this year, but ever since Alabama played them, I mean, my goodness, where'd they go? Yeah,
right. I know what you mean. I'm trying to find the spread here. It's going to be interesting. I mean, the Alabama defense could even get better too. I'm hearing that the 1-year, one-time transfer is going to happen here in the next couple weeks. Are we still thinking that Henry Toto, who played at Tennessee last year, will be at Alabama if that happens?
Yeah, I mean, talking with Andrew Bone, I think that's certainly something that everybody's waiting for, and I think that that's going to happen. I think it's just kind of a matter of time to when Henry really can get a green light and have that opportunity to transfer within conference and be able to play right away. And I think that kind of one of the questions that we have is at the inside linebacker position, because we know that Christian Harris is coming back. But with Ali Kahu leaving, with Ben Davis leaving, not that Ben Davis was an interior linebacker, he was repping more with the outside linebackers. You have Jalen Moody coming back. You have a couple other guys that should be able to go. I mean, even some of these freshmen that are coming in. But Henry To'oTo'o, I think, would come in and fit in very nicely. I can't even imagine him and Christian Harris kind of being side by side, and then having Chris Allen on the edge, and then having Will Anderson on the other side. And we got a question just right now about JT Tuilamola. I mean, I'll ask Andrew. We're going to have a recruiting show tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, March 16th. And I think, Alabama can take as many guys as they want under this window because of the new rules that have been put in place due to COVID. So Alabama, normally can only have 85 guys on scholarship. This year, they could have 100. It's more about 2022 that we're worried about. So I think Nick Saban, if he's going to take, all the chips on the table, this is going to be the year. And then in 2022, you're going to see probably a smaller recruiting class. And I think you're probably going to see a lot more transfers as they try to get back to 85. Now, that's not 100%, for sure right now, because we just don't know what the NCAA is going to do in 2022. But for 2021, Alabama can have a ton of guys on the roster.
It'll definitely be a team early that'll be relying on the defense. You figure as the offense gets things figured out, it might be one of those situations where you better get Alabama early, because at some point you know that the offense is going to click. You got Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone leading things, and then on top of that, 4- and 5-star talent all over the field. All right, Kyle, what else you got going on this week? I know tomorrow is normally you and Andrew Bone.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy week for our, Alabama athletics. So we'll be here to provide tons of coverage. We'll continue to crack out our storyline series kind of going into the week. And then Alabama has their first practice on Friday. Now, Nick Saban is speaking on Friday night. So definitely hit the subscription tab so you can be notified when we post the Nick Saban press conference. That'll be around 6:05 p.m. So we'll definitely have that right here on BamaInsider.com, along with B-roll and highlights from Alabama's first practice. And then on Saturday, as you guys talked about before, Alabama versus Iona, that'll be on TBS, I think, at 3 p.m. Central Time. So a lot of moving parts. We'll definitely keep you posted at BamaInsider.com. And then Alabama's second practice of the spring season, they got 15 of them leading up to A-Day on April 17th, will be on Monday. So tons of coverage coming your way at BamaInsider.com. Great time to hit the subscription button right here on BamaInsider.com to be part of that 50,000 strong club.
All right, he's Kyle Henderson. I'm Mick Gillespie, reminding you that tomorrow to be Kyle and Andrew Bone. Wednesday, Kyle and I will team up, and we've got content for you all week, including Tony Tsoukalis' columns. We heard from him earlier in the show at BamaInsider.com. So, guys, we appreciate it. Again, subscribe, give us the thumbs up, check out the website. Lots to be happy about for this Crimson Tide team. And then you saw my bracket. I got us in the Sweet 16. For Kyle and Tony, I'm Mick. Thanks for watching, guys. Roll Tide. We'll do it again next Monday.